Okay, so why don't we start? People will join. It's open and people can come and chime in. But I'm Nina Kodik, for anybody who doesn't know me, but I think and hope I know all of you. I am on the board of Visionary Women and have been representing membership, which is why I know so many of you. Hi, Elizabeth. New members and old members, and it's just such a joy to be a part of this group, which is a giving circle. Because we all give together and amplify our giving, and we're a learning circle because we all come together to learn, and it's just fantastic. So thank you all for continuing to be a part of us. It's your money, your dollars that we get to give away and become a force in making an impact for women and girls. So we've continued to do that throughout COVID. So we appreciate your staying with us. Because the need is greater than ever, of course. These times have really hit women. And we've been able to give away hundreds of more thousands of dollars during this time. So really, from the bottom of our hearts, we feel so blessed and so honored that you guys trust us and trust us to curate, your dollars and make them really meaningful. So thank you from all of us at Visionary Women. Now on to our special speaker, Ryan Haddon, who I'm so proud to introduce.
Hi, everyone.
Ryan is a life coach and a spiritual mentor, a hypnotist, and also a meditation teacher. And if we have time at the end of our Q&A, Ryan will lead us in a little meditation for the morning. And you're going to love her. I can't wait. Ryan grew up all over the world. I won't tell you too much about her. She'll tell us a little bit, and you can read about her too in her bio on her site. She grew up all over the world, though, with a mom who was an international supermodel. And came to spirituality fairly early in high school and spent some time in India. But nonetheless, she came back to the States, went to college, had a big career in journalism and lived, the high life. And it took a little while till she came back to her, I think, true calling. And so she had, her own transitions and transformations, and found her calling in helping others. And she is a counselor to many people all over the world. She has clients and she speaks at conferences and she speaks for all kinds of organizations. She does it now from Pennsylvania, where she lives with her husband and 4 children. She is just a beautiful soul who has so graciously agreed to talk with us this morning. So I think that'll do it. Ryan, over to you.
Thanks, Nina. What a beautiful intro. Thank you. It's such a privilege to be here. I mean, your mission statement is so powerful, and how you're showing up for the divine feminine on the planet, truly. So thank you for your service, all of you, each and every one of you, and Nina and the founders of this. I mean, what a visionary idea, truly. It's how we can change the world one, idea and vision at a time, and then a collective to do it, to set it into motion in the ways that we all can, right? So that's true service. So what a beautiful thing. And then good morning, coffee and conversation. Let's have it. Hope you all have your coffees. It's lunchtime here for me, but I still have a little tea, a protein shake going, so I'm in the mix. I guess I was thinking about visionary women. So what happens when vision has to change because of outside circumstances out of our control, right? And that's kind of what's happening in this unique time. And let's call it unique. Let's not name it bad or good. Sometimes we have a tendency to, have these dualities and we feel ping-ponged between this is good, this is bad. How about we just call it unique for today? Let's leave it there and say that, what I'm seeing in my practice is people either have this high productivity that's happening where they already had a big and full and beautiful life, and now they have more things piled on top. And Nina and I were talking about that, and she had this great term called augmented reality. I love that. It's an augmented reality. So there's those people. Then you have other types of people during this period of time where things are falling apart, and things that might have been shaky before this pandemic are kind of really sifting out and moving around. So businesses, relationships, finances, all sort of these externals, right? So you have two groups of people, and then there's all of us in between that are sort of, grappling with this new world order, so to speak, right? And the stresses of that. And So how do you manage that as a visionary woman, right? And a good question to ask that I always find that I ask clients is, who am I in relation to what's going on right now? So we get to make decisions. How do I want to show up? And sometimes we have the faculties to do that, sometimes we don't, right? So we gain them. But another good question is, what are the gifts that are here for me in this situation? Because they're here. Everything's, in my worldview, in my spiritual view, is everything is happening in divine order, good and bad, whatever you want to see it. And so there's, if in that perspective, what are the gifts here for me and how can I curate and mine them, right? So a great practice is moving into, we've heard this term bandied about, it's called radical acceptance. Nina and I touched on that too in one of our calls. And, you know, what is radical acceptance? Well, pain is in fighting reality, right? It's an energy leak for us and wishing things were different. And it's like railing against what is. So when we move into radical acceptance, we get right with what is happening and what is unfolding. And so we can maneuver within it for the highest. It doesn't mean we have to condone it. Doesn't mean we have to like it. And that's true in a relationship. It's true in how someone around in our life is reacting or acting out or whatever that is. So who am I in relation to them? Who am I in relation to the changes? And what's the radical acceptance piece that I can move into? So I'm not spinning my wheels fighting against what is. It should be different. They should be doing this. It should look like this. That's the part where we lose our power. And we want to feel empowered in a time and feel anchored in ourselves in a time when everything around us feels like it's, you know, there's a seismic shift, right? So that's important. And when we get in that place, we move into an allowing and an accepting everything as it is. And one step further, all that we are within it right now. So like I said, it is a time of instability. Everything's shifting. But here's the thing, is that it's all fake security anyway, right? It's always been precarious. We've just put tethers here. It's the husband. Oh, it's the girlfriends. Oh, it's the job. All these things are not real securities anyway, because husbands come and go. I'm on number 2. And, you know, you've got the same one for a lot of time, but husbands come and go. We fall in and out of love. We fall in and out of relationships with girlfriends. Our children grow up. I have 6-year-olds and I have 21-year-olds. So, you know, this time moves on. And so jobs change. Finances change. Boy, I've been at the top and I've been at the bottom, you know, with that stuff. And so it's really just knowing like it's all impermanent. So somewhere we have this lens that right now everything's shifting around us, but maybe it always was. Maybe, you know, it's about letting go of that safety net and looking to how things are changing in a negative way and just saying, you know what, I'm getting right with these changes and I'm going to learn how to manage myself because all I have is today. And in today, I can move into presence. And in presence, everything's okay. Right for right now, in this moment, everything is okay. You guys are tuning in. We're right here in this moment. We're connecting. We're seeing other women. We're feeling that sense of community. You have your health. You have, you know, so it's really just that self-talk. So this is an opportunity in this moment when everything around is shaky, understanding that it always was shaky, that this is an opportunity to drill down into ourselves and create that true tether. And that is the hero's journey of finding your center. And what is a center? It's a set point of gravity within yourself. So let's talk about it a little bit. First, let me tell you what it's not. So it's not looking to others for answers, right? We've all done that. Like, are you my mother? Are you like, what should I do? What should I do? So knowing that you're kind of out of center when that happens. Of course, we want to seek good counsel when needed. And I'm a coach, so I'm all for that and seeking that out. But at the end of the day, you know when it's not trusting yourself, right? It's getting rocked by life's ups and downs all the time. It's being stressed out. It's being overly dependent on other people's opinions and emotions. It's people pleasing, right? Figuring out what they need me to be so I can be. It's all moving out of center, moving away from that place of gravity and power within ourselves. It's feeling disconnected, not engaged with the world, feeling that isolation, right? Or loneliness. Just a general always feeling of dissatisfaction. It could be busyness, but not purposefulness, right? It could be an attraction to high drama frequencies, right? We're always looking for that. It's like a fix. outside of ourselves, a restlessness, a developed persona, so we're not authentic. So that's sort of what can look like. I'm sure there's many others, but those are just some examples of not being in our center. And we all kind of pop off every time, right? But if you're constantly finding this is who you are, it's how you drone through your life at all these other ways, you're not in your center of power, right? And what happens when you don't have one is that you're constantly seeking externals to prop you up, right? Because there's no center within yourself. And you're trying to get your needs met outside of you. And that's an impossibility because we can't get everyone to do what we need them to do, or the world to behave the way it should, or our children or our husbands. It's just never going to happen, right? So it's a setup. And in the extreme, in my case, I'll speak for myself, in the extreme of not having a center, you developed ways of coping that are negative. So they're negative coping skills. So it would be, eating disorders, spending and debting, codependence, toxic relationships, perfectionism, addictions. It's not pretty, right? That's in the extreme. So let's talk about what having a center is. It's creating a deep and rich relationship to yourself, right? So it's being steady, intuition-led, trusting the path, being in self-love, knowing how to self-soothe. That's a big one. I find so many of my clients come in and they don't know how to self-soothe. What do I need to do? We have this self-care and we think it's baths and, different things. And it can be those things, but ultimately, how do you speak to yourself? And we'll touch on that a little bit more. For some of us, it might be a connection to your personal divine, whatever that means to you. And it could be inside you. And it's sharing and connecting from a place of wholeness. It's giving from overflow and not lack. And it's loving who you are. It's putting a relationship to yourself first and foremost in the most unselfish possible way. And it's a general contentment with conditions as they are. So again, that radical acceptance. So that would be sort of the ideal container of having a center and what that would look like and operating with that in place. So how do you get one, right? And how do you keep one? So it's really, I'm gonna take a sip of water. It's really becoming your best ally, right? It's tuning into you. And that was a big thing for me when I was in recovery. I'll just say this, I've been, this year I'm 17 years in recovery. But that was a big one because I was so disconnected from that voice within me. And I had worked so hard to make it so tiny and quiet that I had to learn how to turn that volume up, or the volume was way loud and I had to put things on top of it to quiet it down. So it was either extremes of those two. So learning how to become your best ally. What do you need? Those are the types of questions I'd have to ask myself. What do you need right now, Ryan? What's going on for you? I can feel you're upset. What's happening? So almost speaking to myself as I would a child who's in stress and who's needing something, and only I can deliver that. So that was something I had to learn to do early in my recovery, and I'm still, working with, but that's in place. So the root of that is managing your self-talk. So how do you speak to yourself? How you speak to yourself definitely determines the quality of your life. If you're, condescending and short and impatient and rude, then that's what you will manifest. You create this climate within you, and then you manifest that in your world outside of you. And people will keep mirroring that same reality to you in all your relationships. And every now and then you'll have an angel who'll show up and be like, "That's not true. I don't hear." So those beautiful Eskimos show up and they sort of walk us through those tight moments. But in general, that's what ends up happening. So it's noticing to keep one and get one. It's noticing when your triggers come up, because they're going to come. This is what they're here to do, and they're flags on the field. I'll talk about triggers a little bit later, but again, this self-soothing. So it's knowing how to self-soothe. What do I need? And sometimes our tools of self-soothing, we outgrow them and we need to put more in the toolbox. So we'll talk about some of those also. But again, it's getting your own needs met. Stop looking outside of you. It's not going to happen. It's fleeting and it's temporary. It's nice to lean into every now and then, but at the end of the day, it's you and you. So that's a kind of a really great adjustment, because it shifts our focus out there. What can you do? What do I need? And putting it back into you. So that's been really powerful. It's knowing that you're not your thoughts. And, consciously noticing them is a way to also manage your self-talk. We have something like on the high end, 60,000 thoughts a day, right? That's a lot. That's a lot. And so 85% of them, they say, are negative, and 95% of them are just recycled and habitual. So those thoughts are creating a reality. Again, this is sort of that mojo of we create what we think about, how we feel about ourselves. It's kind of in that same wheelhouse. So we really want to start noticing our thoughts. And it's painful if you haven't done it in the beginning, because you're like, the way to do that is through a feeling. So maybe you feel a feeling and you're like, oof, I feel a little sad. I feel a little depressed. I feel a little less than. What's going on for me? And then you'll just sort of trace, what was I just thinking? I was thinking, yeah, I was just thinking that girl looks better in her jeans than I do, right? Whatever, let's just keep it real. Those are those things. And then you trace it back. Is that true? Then you learn how to self-soothe, which is, you know what? You start talking to yourself that way. You start managing your feelings and the thoughts and then the feelings follow behind that. So that's just an example, but you'll find your way through that. But thoughts are so very important. And again, we have so many of them and they're unconscious. So all of that work, all of these ways of finding that center leads to self-acceptance and self-love. And with dedication and patience over time, you become the relationship you are looking for everywhere else, in everyone else, in all situations. And that's what we've always wanted, right? So this is the drill down. And certainly, again, in this time when things are shaky outside of us and we're still looking to be propped up, why don't we let it go and just move into that relationship to us? So I mentioned that I was as dark could be, as an addict, a codependent, eating disorders, deading, all of that. So my healing was all about finding my center. And it was all about getting out of me and managing, getting in me and then managing my big feelings externally, so and how those would manifest. So for me, that was through meditation. It was through community. So I got sober in a community and all those different kinds of programs. And then breath work, stillness, nature, journaling. I love tapping. I've spoken on tapping summits. I just think the world of it. It's a melding of, most of you know it, I'm sure you're in California. So it's a melding of Chinese acupressure and psychiatry, two together, which is being with a negative feeling, touching certain points on the body, and then bringing the two together and moving through that feeling and integrating it in your system. So it's pretty powerful. I can tell you more about that. We have a Q&A at the end, so if anyone's interested. It's journaling. So what am I thinking? What am I really, we have this way of just managing these recycled thoughts. And when you journal, you can really create a space, a container to allow what's going on beneath the surface. Most of us are super highly productive. So we get good at managing. I got to do this. Oh, I got to do that. And it's this busyness. So when we drop below that, and meditation might be a tall order, but journaling can be easy, to just see, what are you really thinking? What's really going on for you right now? And making a practice out of that, making a connection with something greater. I don't know where everyone is on the spectrum of that, and we're all in different places. Some people it's nature, some people it's, their religion, some people it's all kinds of things. Whatever that is, go deeper with that. And, I'm a huge believer in hypnosis. I'm a hypnotherapist. So I recruit the subconscious mind. I feel like it operates, again, 95% of those habitual thought patterns. So it's hard to drop into that. And so hypnosis is a way to do it. There's other ways to do it. It's not the only way, but I healed working with hypnotherapist. And one of the modalities that I used, it's being in an uplifting community. And you guys have that here, which is powerful, but finding like-minded people that are on a path that have the same values, that is so deeply healing. It's feeling purpose in your life, and it's being of service to others. And you also know the value in that too. So I thought I'd talk about some tenets that I think really work and that help you support yourself in your center. I talk about these with my clients a lot. We unpack them. So the basic premise being, you are a spiritual being having a human experience. right? And you are living in a matrix. This is our matrix. And you guys are in, I don't know if all of you are in, but I was in Hollywood for a long time, and it is the matrix within the matrix, right? It's the factory of creating matrices for the whole world of what love looks like, success, friendship, like it's just cranking and churning it out, right? So just knowing that that you're in an alternate reality of sorts, and knowing that your ego identifies with it. So wherever you can, you want to pull out from it and remember who you really are, right? And that you're here to grow spiritually. So it's a reframe when you're like, why isn't this happening? And why don't remember, this is you're right on the path. This world is pushing notions and ideas and tenets and ways of being that might not be in line with who you really are and where you want to be, right? And so when you're in your center, you're much more easily able to identify that and feel how you get tripped up, or how the ego wants to run point or be seen or be acknowledged, or, so that's really helpful. And that everything is a context for you to connect to yourself. I have this mentor that I worked with in early recovery, and I would call her up and I would be like, and he's doing that. I divorced in early recovery. And I would say, and he's doing this, and this is what's happening. And she'd be like, Ryan, how much more can you love yourself right now? Mic drop. And so that was the lens to view what was going on in my life, that it wasn't about him, that it wasn't about what he was doing or what he wasn't doing, or what that falling apart that inevitably had to happen. It was about, how could I show up for myself in that moment and be loving? And so every time I would remember to do that, it was a different answer that I got. But knowing that was a context for me to do that. And again, creating a daily practice of tuning out the world and what it's selling, and tuning into your relationship to you. So that's vitally important, again, with this matrix that keeps catching us up and making us think we're not enough, or we're not pretty enough, young enough, good enough, like just all those things. That's the selling, and how it keeps us kind of enslaved, right? And no harm, no foul to it. This is what we've created with our free will. But again, it's knowing this is a game. This is a video game of sorts, and we are human, we're souls in this human body having these experiences, but we have to remember that. So we stay on the path of our evolution, right? So from that place of knowing who and what you really are, really leading your life from there, and seeking contentment over happiness. I love this adjustment about contentment over happiness, because happiness is fleeting. It's externally focused, and contentment is something that we can curate no matter what's going on outside of us. So just remembering that you are such an empowered being, you are such a sovereign being, that you can cultivate that stillness, that contentment, even if the shit is hitting the fan, even if you're in the midst of recreating your life, and just knowing that you are fully empowered to step into that space and place within yourself, and trusting that whatever is unfolding is right where you need to be. There are lessons here. So, I love to tell this story about how, I had segmented one part of my life was spiritual, and then I would be in the world, and I'm like coaching, and I'm doing these different things. And then, I remember I was yelling at my kids one time, and I was like, God, if my people could see my clients or my sponsees could see me now, I'm like, losing my stuff with my kids. And then I at that moment, I remembered, I'd say to my personal divine, I'd say, see me now, see my higher self, see me now in the weeds. See me now in the dirty bits, because I don't want to compartmentalize parts of myself that I deem not valuable or worthy, or not spiritual, or not, integrated. So that really was helpful. And it's a way to see where I disassociate from character, flaws, or ways of being that I deem less valuable. So that was a big part of integrating, because I'm all about integrating my shadow self. If I don't integrate that, I will go back to what was the shadow self that we all have. It's the part of us. We all have versions of it that we disown, that we decide aren't favorable, or we don't want other people to see. So we create these masks, and it's like taking off all the masks, integrating the shadow part, And this is where it gets really exciting. So what you disavow in you becomes that shadow aspect, and we have to drag it all out in the open. Not all at once. Not at once. This has been it's a long journey, right? We're here for the time that we get. And so this is how we live consciously, if that's of interest to you. So again, I said this before, the quickest way to find your center is through your self-talk. And the frequency of addiction is self-loathing. So the further you can move away from that self-loathing, and we'll have strands and strains of it that we're healing from, and move into the frequency of joy, abundance, and prosperity, then we feel that self-love, right? And addiction really can't take root there, or acting out, or the shadows, or all these different parts and pieces. It's really growing out that self-love. So I mentioned that I was going to bring up, triggers. So you start there, you've got your center, and then you feel triggered. Something happens, people around us don't do what we think they should do. Things don't go our way. And what then? So when the triggers happen, there's a contraction, get curious. These are signposts. These are places in you that need healing so you can evolve. And that's the mission, right? So if it's anger, it's telling you powerless. If it's anxiety, it might be telling you where your life is off balance. If it's fear, it's showing you what you care about. And if it's apathy, maybe where you're overextended or where you feel a little bit burnt out, So I think it's just that bringing that curiosity to your situation in all situations, right? And knowing that your feelings aren't random, they're messengers. So we want to let them speak to us. So finding those places that are safe to do that. If you've got those friends that are like, girlfriend, another thing, like that's not going to help, right? And screw him. That's not your tribe when you're trying to evolve. You want someone to be like, I hear that. This is what I'm seeing. I'll hold space for you, but this is what I'm hearing you say, right? So and sometimes, we want to align to get someone to meet us in that place where we can just be gossipy or be right, and so that's decide how many of those people do you have around you. Keep good company. It really elevates when we dip down, and we need each other to remind each other of remember what you're here to do. Remember you're here to grow and learn and change and shift. And I'm hearing you repeating the same thing again. Where are you at with that now? Who are you in relation to what's unfolding? So we all have the power to find our center, right? And to be with these resources and find that stability in these changing times. So when you're in the center, at this unique time, as I said at the beginning, there are two types. There's the pile-on, people who already had a big life that are piling on, so there's kind of overwhelm, or there's people experiencing a void. So the first type, overwhelmed, if you have a center, you'll feel more mindful. You'll feel ease and grace as you move from activity to activity, and you'll be cultivating stillness within all the cacophony and noise, because you have this point within you that makes it possible to move with ease and grace through your life. And if you're the second type of person who's crumbling and of the old and it's a reinvention, you will intuitively know what's next, and you'll trust your intuition, and really truly the fear falls away. So that's for both types of people, having a center is unbelievably helpful. And so I leaned into that second type, the type that was, everything was a reinvention, about 10 years ago when I, was living in the heart of Brentwood. And it just felt like I was using a lot of my resources trying to shut out the noise. And I thought my husband wanted to leave. Both of us had been in LA for a while. I remarried at that point. I went through my single years in LA in between those marriages. Oh my God. Not for the faint of heart. And I actually work with a lot of women in LA right now who are single. And so I really can fly back there in a minute, what that was like. And yet I found my person there. We've been together 13 years now, but about 10 years ago, we decided we wanted a new experience. And so we moved to Pennsylvania, and it was terrifying to leave everything I knew and all my friends. And again, I'm sharing this with Nina at the top of this, morning, that those women were my family. when you're single and you have 2 little kids and, you know, trying to navigate and work and dating and, you know, new recovery and like all these different insecure elements and different financial situation. And I had a bit of notoriety at that time. Like I didn't have like, I didn't have everything on paper. It didn't look so good, you know? But I had this family of women, and it was of girlfriends. And so I'm definitely that girl's girl, you know? And so that really kept me in good stead. So seek out those women, you know, it's so potent, and there's many of you there in LA. And there's such a great spiritual, I talked about the factory of illusion in LA, but I also want to say there's this incredible spiritual community there of hypnotherapists, of healers, of, you know, meditation groups. I mean, it's such an undercurrent, and it's so very, very special. It's unique to LA. So know that you have that. You have these 2 realities that coexist there, and it's a thing of beauty. But so that was really hard for me to leave. But I had this calling, I had this knowing, I had curated my center, and I knew that I could project out onto the screen, even not knowing the details, not having it all locked down, not knowing friends here. I was 6 months pregnant and moving here like an old homesteader. Do you know what I mean? Here we go, we're leaving with our, you know, it strapped my 2 kids on the back and all our stuff, and like this farmhouse that we, you know, my husband lovingly restored. And so we've been here for 10 years now, and I can't even tell you how it's unfolded layers upon layers. In the first few years were tough, but it is truly, it's been a magical decision. So that was me taking a leap of faith from a place of center and jumping off, not knowing what was behind the screen, but taking that chance on myself and trusting my intuition. And then I'm also the first type, because in the coronavirus, there's been an expansion for me with my small kids at home. One of them is special needs, so that can be challenging. She's not getting all the instruction that she needs, so there's, you know, acting out and things that happen, but we're managing it. And then I've had so many workshops I've been doing. I launched this free weekly hypnosis. I did it for 3 months of just offering hypnosis to anyone who wanted to take it, because I feel like it's such a great tool, and people are a little afraid of it, to be honest, because of the stage shows. They think they're going to do ridiculous things, but it's more about really uploading an idea into the root of who you are and how you think and operate, from a baseline of safety, security, letting go of anxiety, trusting everything is working out. So those were I did that. That was a big deal. And I had 100 people show up one time. So that's people wanted it. They were looking for it. So that was an expansion that happened for me in this time. I launched a group coaching course with a group of select women on relationships. And that was just an amazing thing. And then I've been writing for publications. I've been doing TV shows. I got baby goats. I had this fantasy of having baby goats. So right when coronavirus happened, I found these 2 baby goats, and I had to bottle feed 6 times a day. But I just loved it. It dropped me into presence when I had all these other things going on in my office and my kids, and I would take them for walks with my kids and just drop into nature and them. And I also actually turned vegetarian. So that was a cool offshoot. I've been wanting to do it, but looking into their eyes and feeding them milk, I was like, yep, this is my value now. This is who I've become. So there's an expansion that happened, which I'm sure is happening for many of you within this period of time. But the reason I can operate and do so much, and people look from the outside and how are you doing this? Because I have this center, and I can go off, and I've had tears and I've had frustrations, but I come back to this set point. So that's the center that I'm talking about. We can do anything from that place. And maybe my practices have slipped a little bit, but I'll be folding laundry and chanting mantras or doing my breath work, or you have to get creative, or washing the dishes. And I'm like, oh, Om Namah Shivaya. Like that's what carries you. And sometimes, you know, we grab it where we can. So I'm in alignment, and I can be in either type, and it's okay. And it's all an opportunity. And it's about shifting perception for the highest good, picking up new tools right now, and putting value on your relationship to self. Thank you.
Thank you so much. COVID has been an interesting time for a lot of people and a lot of women. And I think there are a lot of people learning new things and trying out new tools and finding new people to follow. And, you know, thanks for being one of those who have been offering services and things online for those of us who want to listen. I am open for questions. There's a Zoom group chat if anybody has any questions or wants to actually come off mute. I don't have the group muted, so if anybody has...
We were going to do a grounding exercise. Do you think it would be nice to do that now before the Q&A? What would you prefer?
We are not getting a ton of questions. I feel honestly you're so articulate and so beautiful, and I was going to ask you about takeaways, but I feel like you've already given us some takeaways and given us some mantras about self-talk. I think that our thoughts are so dangerous, and we live in a world of comparison. It is really, really hard. I don't know how the world got to where we are, and I think that's a bigger question than you can answer, I think. But it makes me really sad that we've gotten to this world of being human doers rather than human beings. And I think it's important to remember that we are human beings, and how we are in the world is more important than what we do at all times. So I don't have any questions anymore. I don't see any questions. So let's drop into a meditation.
Okay. I think we'll just do a grounding. I think it's always a nice thing to do. I think when thoughts are spinning, I don't think we'll go through a full meditation. We can just do wherever you are. If you guys are, I see some people were hiking. If you're walking, you know, you can just do this to have that presence, or stand still, or if you're sitting in a chair, just put your feet flat on the ground, uncross your legs and hands, and then just close your eyes so we can just really go within. Good. And just feel your energy going through the floor, through your feet. Let's take 3 deep breaths in, and knowing that 3 deep breaths actually changes the chemistry in your brain. So let's take 3 deep breaths now, breathing in through the nose, deep, deep into the belly. Pause at the top and then exhale. Really letting it all go long out. Nice deep breath in. Feel how the breath goes a little bit deeper the second time, all the way into the belly, and hold and exhale. Good. Nice deep breath in. One more little sip of air and breathing out. Good. Nice. And keeping the eyes closed, just become aware of the soles of your feet. Feel your energy flowing downwards through the point of contact. And 1 foot below you is your earth star below the ground. Connecting to that, even just imagining it, even if you can't see it, just knowing that your energy loops a foot below the ground beneath you, wherever you are. And knowing that Mother Nature, Mother Earth, wants to connect with you desperately. We're so disconnected from her, and we love her. So connecting to her through the earth star. Good. Pulling her sacred energy up through the earth star, up through the soles of your feet. Continue with your deep breathing as I walk you through this, feeling that energy moving up your feet, your ankles into your knees, moving up your thighs into your hips, your beautiful hips that anchor everything, your tailbone, your abdomen, moving up through your spine, all the way up into your chest, to your beautiful heart that can hold so much. Good, up into your throat. Moving up through the top of the head. Continue with your breathing. Good. And feel how that energy at the top of the head wants to ascend further, and just allow it. Just as you have an earth star, you have a soul star 1 foot above your head. Let that energy touch up into that spot 1 foot above your head, and feel it how it wants to go higher, but bring it back down, looping back down into the top of your head, and now going back through your head, down through your neck, your shoulders, down your spine. Good. Well done. Down into your hips, down your legs. Feel it flow back. Good. And going back into the earth star, and feel that loop. So you just got connected and grounded to the earth. That own center, that gravity that you have. You connected with your heart. You connected with your divine self. Just above your head. And as above, so below. There you go. Nice. And you can open your eyes. Good. You can see it doesn't take much. Nice, everyone. It was so great being with you.
That was wonderful. Thank you, Ryan. I did get one question.
Okay.
If we can bounce back into that, although I'm so peaceful now, I don't really want to keep going. But we have a question from one of our board members who says, of course we do get triggered. And you talked about finding your center when you're triggered, right? That's the trick, right? It's like coming back, using the tools when they're most needed. So what are maybe 3 strategies to find that center again? I know you touched on it.
Yeah, I'm so glad. That's such a great question. Thank you for asking that. Because here's the deal. It's when this is when the rubber meets the road, right? Because we can be like, oh, I have my center, la, la. But it's like in those moments when, let's say you're triggered. I'm going to use the example of with your husband or your partner. So in that moment, it's noticing it. Wow. Right. Because if you're doing that self-talk that we talked about and checking in with yourself, and you can even, I have clients that I've said, set your phones to check in with yourself, because it's not on our forefront of our mind. Every hour on the hour, every other hour, check in. How am I doing? How am I feeling? What's going on for me? So that's a tool. So if you're doing that, that becomes something you do on the reg. Then in those moments when you're feeling triggered, you're going to be like, oh, I'm feeling triggered right now. What's going on? And it's remembering in that moment that it's not about the trigger itself. It's not about that external. It's not about the husband. It's not about what he's saying or doing that's causing you this internal friction. It's about something inside you. So I think just making that shift in that moment. So it will look like this. Your husband's going, well, blah, blah, blah. And then you're like, yeah. So you're going to get quiet and you're going to say, you know what? I'm not going to solve this with you right now because I'm triggered. So I'm going to go and self-soothe and I'll get back to you. So it's exiting the conversation. Sometimes, this is the early days. Now I can do that in the moment when it happens. So I'm like, no, this is not about him. It's because, whatever that is, and exit and then journal, call someone, meditate, do your things. Don't do a spiritual bypass by meditating, but get it out, get the feelings out, get curious. Why was I triggered? What about this is triggering? What are the feelings that are being brought up in this moment? And remembering that it's not about the actual thing. We think it's the thing. It's not. It's about something within you that got activated. And so bringing that curiosity to it, like, what's that about for me? And that actually really shortens the distance for me between the resentment and acting out with the person instead of like firing off. And then you're in a response instead of a reaction. And that is so deeply self-esteem building. I can't even tell you. It's very potent. So I hope that's the example that I came up with. So it's really being with you when you have a trigger and knowing that the illusion of thinking that it's about the person or the thing that's triggering you, it's actually not.
Of course, it is about the person who's triggered because it doesn't trigger someone else.
Right.
Right. It triggers those of us who have that particular issue.
Right.
That's what.
And so just being with yourself in that trigger. Yeah.
I have a question here. And then I have a beautiful person who says she's worked with you and she wanted to come on and speak. So we'll get right to you, Sarah, in a second. But first, somebody asked if you could talk a little bit more about tapping because she hadn't heard of that.
Oh, that's so cool. Wow. I'm so excited to be the purveyor of that info. So tapping as you move through these meridian points on your body, and they're very specific. So it's this karate chop point and you repeat certain phrases. So you say what you're angry about or you're upset about or what's going on, the trigger, what's happening for you in that moment. I'm so angry, that this person just did this to me again, but I accept and love myself completely. So you see how it melds all the things I've been talking about, or we move into acceptance around ourselves and self-love. And we're also acknowledging the trigger and that we're getting activated. So it's here, then it moves to this part, and then you keep talking and you keep saying, I feel so angry. You move through these points and you just keep moving through them. Okay, they're here and then here. So I'm going to tell you that my favorite people who do this are the Ortners. It's these 3 siblings, Jessica, Alex, and Nick. And they have an app. It's called the Tapping Solution app. And it's amazing because you can download it and I've recommended it so many times. I have no kickback from this, but they're my friends. I want them to do well. they will walk you through that with certain scripts for very specific things, for loss, for grief, for fear, for anxiety, for that. So you can just press on and listen to it, and they'll walk you through how to do it. So hope that helps.
Thank you. Thank you. Sarah, can you get on, sweetie? Let's see.
Sarah.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I just wanted to say that I happened to call Ryan through a friend right before COVID happened. It was just sort of like the stars aligned, and I had booked appointments with her before COVID. And it was one of the biggest gifts that I gave to myself, because I realized that there's a difference between being a confident woman or a confident person and a centered person. And so I feel like my time with Ryan gave me the tools to, building upon what you guys just were talking about, of not taking everybody else's commentary and letting it trigger me, and becoming less porous to what was going on around me, and how I could just stay in who I am and not letting it rock me into every direction. So it was becoming more centered and less reactive to my triggers, whether it's like my mom's annoying comments or my kids being weirdos or whatever it is. And I'd also say one of the biggest things for me in terms of my toolbox was figuring out how to quiet my inner critic. Because we all have this little minion, or you can call it whatever you want, that lives inside of you. And it's like this. And it's like, don't do this. You're not good enough. You're not going to be able to do that. And all of these tools that Ryan has been talking about are things that I thought I did, but I didn't really. But now I'm really trying to. And it was such a gift. So if you ever have a chance, including hypnosis, which I listen to her recording all the time.
You're so brave.
Go for it, because she's a gift and her voice is amazing.
Thanks, Sarah. Oh my God, I loved working with you. We had so much fun.
Thank you. We have one more question, Ryan, and then we'll let everyone go. It's almost 10. The question is that everything feels so uncertain during these COVID times. I know we touched upon that, that there's no predictability or certainty these days. I get the question is, how can we find center in such vulnerable times? Because it seems like it's more uncertain than ever.
Right. I guess I'll just speak to that and say, this is why we find center, because it's so uncertain, because everything is so unpredictable. Everything around us is so, the outcomes are so unknown. And so that's actually always been true. Like I said, we just have assigned meaning to things that are impermanent in general. So now we're all getting in this, as spiritualists know this, but now we're all in that same boat where we're universally acknowledging, wow, I can't bank on anything. I can't count on anything. I don't know what's going to happen with my kids and going back to school. I don't know about jobs. I don't know how I'm going to come together as a community. So in that acknowledging of impermanence, moving into that acceptance that it is this way, all we can truly count on more than ever is drilling into this relationship to self, where we can anchor in and be able to show up with whatever unfolds around us. It's going to unfold anyway, but we might as well not get rocked by every new development as it comes. So if we can create this sense of security and safety and an anchor in that, and finding a center within, everything else will find its place, and it will work itself out, as it always will, as it always has. I mean, it actually always has. So yeah.
It's such a beautiful message to honestly pass on to our children and all those around us, our parents and everyone else who is feeling so uncertain.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, we have to be the lights as the women. This is our sacred duty. I truly believe that. We're leading the way into this new world order. It's the women. The men have had their turn. It's our turn. And so we can do it together, but we have to be that light in our homes. It starts within us, and it starts in our homes, to our children, with our husbands, with our relationships, and it ripples out. And so every time we make a small message of changing how we speak to ourselves and how that ripples through our home and in our lives, the world will be created in a new way as it should be. So
words to live by.
thank you for having
Anyone
me.
who wants Ryan can reach out, and her information's on our website as well. And again, thank you. Thanks for being our members, and thanks for giving to Visionary Women and staying with us. And Ryan, you will be an honorary Visionary member from Pennsylvania, and we hope to see you again, and we hope to see everybody soon.